Hi everybody, welcome to the official first episode of the Brave Productions podcast, and what an amazing guest we have on for our first episode. This is Devan Schoelen, upcoming filmmaker, writer, director, actor. Wait till the end of this show because we have a lot to talk about his first short film that was just accepted into Screenfest and is very, very good, but we're going to get there. But the theme of this episode is horror. Starting off on a fun note. But the great thing is that me and Brit aren't really horror buffs. Devan is. So it's going to be a great conversation, and every week, every episode, we're going to have our guests come and they're going to bring a movie for us to watch. And as it's Halloween, we asked Devan, what do you want to watch? And he told us
Freaky by Christopher Landon.
It's from 2020.
Yes.
This is a great movie.
Yes.
We really enjoyed it, actually.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
It was fun.
No, it's one of my favorites. It has nice, wholesome quality to it, which I like. And they really meshed. I think the original title was supposed to be Freaky Friday the 13th, but then they got sued by Disney or something,
right.
So it had to just be called Freaky.
Well,
but
that's interesting.
I like it.
Yeah, because it happens on Friday, so like that hidden Freaking Friday is in there.
They were able to slip it in there without paying the fine.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing because the director, Chris Landon, he also did Happy Death Day, which is also a Groundhog Day premise.
What did you do today?
Oh, same old, same old.
In the horror world.
Sprinklers, car alarm.
And this is Freaky Friday.
What have you done to my ear?
Mom, it's an earring.
Take it out. Take it out right now.
In the horror world.
Yeah.
Oh my God, why do I sound like that?
I woke up in the killer's body.
Comedy tropes in a horror setting.
Yeah, he meshes horror and comedy very well and in such a wholesome way. The characters are always very strong and you root for them. I know we're here to talk about Freaky, but Disturbia, he also wrote, opens on a father and son fishing, and then within 5 minutes they get into a car accident and the dad dies. So you're immediately rooting for that character, and he has such a smart way of writing for his characters and making you immediately root for them, which adds an element of empathy to his horror movies.
Which we'll get into the movie more, but to start off, how did it make us feel? Because, again, we stay away from horror because we don't like how it makes us feel. But this one actually was, I think Vince Vaughn, the comedy aspect really gives you this feeling of levity into the horror.
He gives a hell of a performance. He plays it in a way, it's so easy to play that super animated and not grounded, and it's supposed to be funny and heightened, and he walks a very fine line of making it funny and heightened, but it's still believable. It never feels over the top, and it's coming. What better person to embody a teenage girl than Vince Vaughn?
Hail, Blissfield, high, feel our glory and our might.
Well, I loved it because I thought that Jack Black and how the character that he had in
Jumanji.
Yeah, in Jumanji. Yes. I was like, there's no one who could do a better job. But I will say, Vince Vaughn showed up and really succeeded with this role. I was so convinced, and I loved that every other character was also convinced in that movie. He just did such a good job. Whereas then watching the girl have Vince Vaughn inside her, I was like, this is just so strange. Yeah. I felt so uncomfortable because I was like, it just didn't. Obviously it wasn't natural, but we talked about it, kind of felt like an alien in a girl's body. Yeah. Where he was just at first she was like, what am I doing here? Just strange.
And no dialogue. She has no lines. She really just has to kind of move about the space, which is so fun for her to embody that.
Right.
But but like they say in the movie, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He gets to when he realizes, wait, I could use this to my advantage. And he dresses all hot. And and that's such a cool scene. I love when it's a slow motion as he's walking into the school.
The pep rally.
The pep rally. Yeah. That's such a cool
so
scene.
Cool.
Just walks right through.
Yeah, ready to kill. It's so fun.
But it is a believable performance by both of them, because someone like Jack Black in Jumanji, it is super heightened, and it's that's Jack Black being really, really funny.
Right.
The fact that I'm not Instagramming this right now is insane.
And in this, I actually was like, oh, I think that's a girl inside of Vince Vaughn. Yeah. And compared to other body swap movies like The Change Up with Ryan Reynolds Jason Bateman,
yeah.
who would just played extra versions of themselves that didn't feel like they switched.
Yeah.
This actually felt like a switch.
They were two extremes they had to play. They had to commit because it's a teenage girl and a serial killer.
Which is cool. I mean, that's why Freaky Friday works so well, because it's two very different people. It's a mother and a daughter to see each other's ways. So to turn that on its head and make it a killer and a girl that's traumatized is a cool switch.
Yeah. No, I love the scene too where they tie her to the chair and they're trying to convince the mom, or they're trying to convince Booker that she is the killer, and she's like, Booker. She's like, that's one of the few times he's using the body.
Okay, so last night our consciousness or our spirit, whatever you want to call it, okay, it traded places.
You're all going to jail for this. You too, Booker, unless you help me.
Will you shut up?
Booker.
But back to the feeling of the movie, which is really interesting. Like we were talking about, I think it's a really interesting idea of someone that has stayed away from horror intentionally to someone like you who really loves it and is knee deep in it. And the way I talk about Christopher Nolan or some indie movie is the way you talk with love and affection is how you talk about horror movies.
No, I'd say like Jeepers Creepers is like my godfather. That's the way people talk about that. Like,
so how does horror, is it the adrenaline rush? Is it just the inspiring nature of the practicality of like a visceral feeling that it brings? Like, what is it for you that
I love? The first horror movie, I guess you can call it, I remember watching, I was 6 years old and I watched Jaws. It was just on TV. I was like home with my dad was probably taking a nap and I just found it on TV, and I remember the opening scene, so I must have just started, but I love the way it made me feel, and it was so exciting, and it's Steven Spielberg and it's a masterpiece. So then we would go to Blockbuster all the time, and I realized, like, okay, I want to watch more shark movies. So to watch more shark movies, they were in the horror section. And then going in the horror section, I saw the horror covers of the movies, and they were all so intriguing. And I loved the idea that I was a child, and I shouldn't be here. And it was so exciting. And then I remember from there going to see scary movies with my older sister and my older cousins, and the fact that I needed an adult. There was something about that. It just felt like a rite of passage in a way, and you felt cool.
It's kind of like you're a bad boy.
Yeah, it was. I loved it because I wasn't. I really wasn't. And I wasn't seen as that at all.
Right.
But I loved that. That was my kind of bad thing.
Yeah, it was like your inner
That was
secret.
the way that I broke the rules. That was what started the horror movie thing for me. And then, it's just such a communal. I'd say horror and comedy are my two favorite genres, and it's such. They're both so much fun to watch with other people. Like you can. Even if you've seen it a million times, it's so fun to enjoy that experience together. Yeah. Like I can watch Forrest Gump by myself and it's amazing, and it's fulfilling. Right. But there's something communal about horror and comedy that, especially in a big theater, really feels like a roller coaster ride you're experiencing with a group of
That's
people.
true.
That's a really good way to put it. I like that because you really do feel. I mean, you're up, you're down, you're just riding this crazy ride the entire time. So it's nice to have people who are on that journey with you, who are like holding your hand.
And my favorite kind, because there are the kind, and I do think certain ones. I think people hear like horror movie lover, and they think you just love to see people get torn apart, and I think that can be too much. My favorite horror movies are the kind that you finish the ride and you want to go back and watch it again. I think rewatchability is a huge thing for my favorite movies. Some horror movies are Hereditary is a masterpiece, but it is not one you want to watch
revisit.
Maybe. I mean, but it's my favorites are ones that I can watch 100 times because they're not too extreme that they're going to mess you up necessarily.
Right. Yeah,
they're the right amount of thrill and exciting and enjoyable that you want to get back and go watch it again. And, and
there you go.
Yeah, but then still have the character that you love or that you're rooting for.
Yeah.
Or the story that you're like, ooh, that has a little heartfelt moment in it that I'm going to take away.
Truly, and that's why I think Christopher Landon's movies have a lot of that heart in them. And I know he's a big fan of John Hughes, and it has that. I mean, even who plays Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He plays the teacher.
Yeah, he is. So
it's a fun little John Hughes crossover. But his movies, while being horror, also do have this wholesome John Hughes coming of age kind of feel to it.
Yeah,
and there's something about horror in high school, I feel like, that always goes well together. Like, and most of his movies are set around high school or college or whatever. But
that's true.
I think there's something, and even that I remember as a kid being like the cool high school kids are in the horror movies and they watch the horror movies, and now I'm past that, so it's kind of nostalgic, and it's always just had a place in my heart.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
No, I love that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially watching it last night, I felt like you were very much taken back to high school.
Yeah.
Where, like, she's sitting in her costume, or, like, you know, her little
the
mascot uniform,
Yeah.
you know, and she's just like waiting. And it's like, oh, I remember sitting there, like, all the lights are turning off, people are going home, you're waiting for someone to
the
pick
end of the
you
football
up.
game, yeah.
You know, and then, like, there is a potential, like, you're in this open parking lot, no one's around you, like, there are moments, you know, that I can remember being like, ooh, this is kind of freaky. This is kind of scary.
Freaky.
So, so it, you know, it definitely takes you back a little bit.
Something else I noticed about his movies, or maybe the horror movies I enjoy more, are the ones that are more mystical. So, like, Happy Death Day, when it's the repeating day.
Okay.
Or body swapping, where it's like
there's a science
far,
fiction element
there's far enough away for it to be like, well, this is when it actually happened in real life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the or like Jeepers Creepers, where it's like a monster or something, where it's the other ones where you're like, oh, like no, I mean that's culty, but it's possibility is there, you know, and then that's what I think is a little more scary. Is the real world aspect of like, oh, this could actually happen, and somebody's thought about this, and you know,
The Strangers. Have you seen that one? That's
no, for a reason.
Is like this group of 3 that just stalks and terrorizes this couple, and they just have masks on, and they just want to kill them, and it's that's why it's so scary. It's so well done, but it could totally happen. It's very plausible. There is no mystical element.
Right.
So I'd stay away from that one. But it's good. It's effective for sure.
What I noticed. So now that we've talked about how we feel about it, the movie itself, what we think about it. I thought it was really interesting how it's very much played as a straight horror the first 10-15 minutes. Like the opening scene with all the kills was it was whoa. And then she's like, dad, sad, everyone at school's mean to her, blah blah blah. And then then she gets attacked, and then the body swap happens, and it turns into a broad comedy. Like out of nowhere.
Well, similar, and that's why I think that's kind of his thing, it seems, in certain of his Christopher Landon's movies is Disturbia is the same way. The opening, it's like a Hallmark movie. You're like, wait, I thought this was a horror.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it goes from like Hallmark movie to like teen drama, and then it goes to like when he gets on house arrest, it's like teen comedy.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a horror. It kind of like takes you on a full ride of genres, which I find so impressive, and it keeps the audience on their toes. But in the opening scene I wanted to talk about too, because it is very much horror, but it has a couple of nods to like. When he tilts his head, that's a nod to Halloween.
See, that's what I think, because I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
I was like, I bet these are probably a lot of nods to other movies.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because like you can tell that this guy, Landon, obviously has this love for horror, but it's interesting what you're saying about how horror, it's a genre, but inside it kind of has every movie genre, like it's acceptable, but as long as there's this terrifying factor, it's just labeled as horror. But
because it's kind of, I think horror is the hook. I think people, if something's branded as a horror, the people that love that are going to come see it. Like as long as people are going to get killed at some point, that's kind of its hook for people.
And Blumhouse produced it, and they're known for low-budget horror movies that end up making a lot of money. And this one we looked at it, made for $6 million, made 18, so it tripled its budget, which is really impressive. And it was in 2020 during the pandemic, so that's pretty impressive. But there is this kind of audience for horror that is almost as big as superhero audiences, where like a lot of people really show up for horror. Do you think you know why?
I think it goes back to that experience thing. You want to take, I mean, like Barbarian just came out last year, and that was very much an example of this. I think it grew as it went. Like it was very word of mouth, and I think horror has that word of mouth excitement because you experience a horror movie and it's such a fun time, so you go tell all your friends to go watch it, and then you go with them again to see it. So it builds, and people go back and watch it again and again and again, where like, certain movies you won't really do that, but horror has like a more of a slow burn as far as the box office goes. I think it's less of a big opening weekend and more of a it kind of builds.
Yeah.
I think Halloween, the original, was like that. The opening weekend wasn't super impressive, but the second weekend was more, and the third weekend was more, and the fourth week it just built.
Wow.
So I think that's it. I think it's people want to go experience it with
what everyone's talking about.
Yeah, they want to see what it's all about, and you want to be the one that told someone about it.
Right.
Like this movie rocked my world. I want to be the one to tell you to go see it.
Right.
You know, I think that's what.
That's interesting.
It's true though, because we heard so many people talk about that movie.
Barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
it was good.
Yeah, and it was genius. It's such a good movie, but having it, it's the kind of movie where you can show someone the trailer and you'd be like, that's not. You don't know. You still don't know.
You have
so
no
you gotta
idea.
Go see it.
Right.
And it's genius because it makes for an incredible movie, but it also. It's going to make people want to go see what all the fuss is about, and they do, and it pays off.
Yeah.
I do think when we're talking about subverting genres and stuff, I think one comedy that kind of did that, Superbad.
Oh, yes.
Superbad it's very much, and I think a lot of comedies do this too, like Superbad's build is like this movie where these teens want to lose their virginity, but eventually, while you're watching it, you learn that it's about like friendship, and it has so much more of a warm tone than you expect it to have going in. Whereas I think a lot of good horror has that too. It's going to be very much billed as like blood and horror, and then you watch it and it got a lot more heart than you expected, and it's got a lot more. It's more wholesome than you thought it would be.
That's what I was thinking about was that horror seems to have like the premise hook that will get people to be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I'll go watch that.
I want to see how that shakes out.
Right, and again, because maybe horror does have that ability to kind of have more than just whatever the top genre is. It can have so many subgenres inside of it that people know that there's probably going to be more than they expect. You know, whereas like a comedy is like, well, it's going to be a comedy.
Yeah.
Or an action movie is going to be an action movie. Superhero movie, the good guy's going to win in the end. Like horror, I feel like something like Barbarian, or where there is a twist in there, or there is something that you want to find out what's going to happen.
Yeah. There seems to be no rules. Like you can kind of do whatever you want as long as terror is inflicted at some point. You can take the audience wherever you want, and that's kind of cool. Like it gives you creative freedom.
Which is interesting because this movie, like in other horror movies I've seen, is like build up. It's about to happen. You cut to the reaction of the other person, see some blood splatter, and they go, oh. Yeah. In this, they do not cut away.
No,
you see everything. And I think that maybe that's kind of of like, all right, here it all is. That's the horror for you. Yeah. Now I can do whatever I want, and it's labeled that way, and I can just stay in this lane. Play box and do whatever I want.
I can make my John Hughes movie. Now, I'm scared to we'll get back to that, but now we're going to fall in love with these characters for a minute.
The ending, I genuinely thought that the movie was over.
Yeah.
Like when they're sitting at the ambulance and la 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 la. And then they're all saying goodnight to each other. Good night, Mom. Bye. Yeah. And then boom. And I was so pissed. I was like, girl, you better lock that front door.
It has a false ending. I love it though. I think it's so fun. Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention too, the scene between Vince Vaughn and Booker in the car.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny.
That's so funny.
But it's so well done, and it could so easily be weird, but somehow which is a testament to both their performances.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's really sweet,
it's
actually.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It's such an unexpected, tender moment.
Yeah.
And because they full on kiss. And like 40-something-year-old Vince Vaughn and this kid.
Yeah. And we were cracking up.
And it's somehow not weird. Like,
no, it
it's
works.
A sweet moment.
Well, I think that just goes to his performance of like how much you believe that it actually is this girl. And that's when he was like, strength isn't in the body, it's in here, and then that's what's so cool about the double ending, where she defeats him as him, and defeating a little girl, then goes back into her body and is still able to defeat him.
Exactly,
and so that, it was a very cool ending, a very John Hughesy ending as well, of like this self-belief and like Cameron and Ferris Bueller is like, oh, it's all right, I can stand up to to my dad. It's that kind of...
It ties it up really nicely.
Yeah,
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I loved the practical effects. Especially for such a lower budget movie, it was so believable. I don't know how they did that. It just looked... not only did it look so real, but I just don't understand how they do it. Yeah. And how they make it look so real. To the point where you're like, oh, I'm contemplating.
Yeah. Actually dead.
Really.
And the kills were creative too.
Yes. Creative kills.
Yeah. I think that's a key to a good slasher too. Like the kills got to be creative.
That's a good question. So what are the top keys to a good slash,
kill.
or a good slash.
I think
kill.
the chase, like personally, my favorite. I think my favorite death scene in any movie is Sarah Michelle Gellar's character and Helen, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's like a 7-minute chase scene where she goes from the back of a police car to her sister's store, up the stairs, jumps out the window, runs through the alley, and then dies. And she's so close, and she sees the parade, and she's almost gonna make it, and she does it. And so I think of the chase and the pacing of the chase and the course of the chase is what makes a great kill in a slasher. It's the ride. It's the roller coaster.
Yes.
So it's like the beginning of Scream with Drew Barrymore too.
The beginning of Scream could be a standalone short film.
Yeah,
it's
like
true. It's like a 12-minute.
Right.
The credits could roll, and it's complete. It's tied itself up.
Full movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
that's
really
true.
Cool.
Yeah, because your heart is pounding. You're like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like that intensity and that build up is definitely what.
Yeah,
makes
it's always
it
disappointing when especially an important character.
Yeah.
It's just when it's a quick kill. It's like it should be exciting. I want to see him run through stuff and jump out a window and hide for a minute and then try to escape. It's about the chase.
Well, that's also true in any genre of movie. Like, it's kind of sad when you see like a beloved character die quickly. Yeah. Like even like Han Solo dying.
Yeah.
It was so just like, and then he falls and you're like, bye.
Right.
You know, it's like someone that everyone's loved for like 40 years and he's gone in like 2 minutes. You know, like he could have had like a 10-minute struggle, you know, like things like that again, these horror tropes that seem to be more cinematic tropes that like you can learn a lot from how they approach storytelling and put it in any genre.
Totally.
Which is really cool. And the model of filmmaking, the fact that like Blumhouse built this really successful model of small budget that earns modest profit, but it's profit.
And they also give their filmmakers final cut. They give the director final cut, which isn't very common. So that way you kind of sink or swim on your own movie. You can't make a movie and then the studio comes in and changes it. Like they're gonna, you get to approve the final cut. So if it's a success, it's your success, and if it's not, it's not. And I think A24 has kind of slipped into that similar. They make the filmmaker's movie versus like change this.
The studios.
They kind of let it be what it is, which because of that they're so successful because all A24 movies aren't the same. You're getting an authentic movie
voice,
from an authentic filmmaker.
Versus someone that went to business school making creative decisions in a boardroom. You know, it's like, no, let the person that actually had the idea,
has the vision.
you know, flesh it out.
And it's cool to see it paying off with Blumhouse and A24, letting filmmakers tell their stories without restraint. And it's we're seeing the payoff.
It's so refreshing.
Cool.
Because you watch a movie and you're like, oh, it's like just satisfaction because not only are you happy for them, but you're happy for your movie going experience too.
Yeah.
Just like, this is a good thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's like comfort food.
Honestly,
Well, speaking of comfort food, that's a pretty good transition to talk about your movie.
Yeah.
Your first...
my first short film.
Which is a horror comedy.
It is, yeah. It's called Dead Dash. It's about a food delivery driver who unknowingly delivers to a serial killer.
Yes.
And I wanted to make something that had the vibe of my favorite slashers, but in like a short film way. And I so badly wanted to make a period piece because I think technology can be so distracting, and especially in a slasher, it's hard to justify. Like, they just call 911. Or there's so many ways that people can get out of things now. And but I was like, no, it'll be a challenge to make it modern day. So I'd love to keep it modern day. And I was at work, and we have DoorDash tablets, and I was like, that would be a fun kind of tool. And I don't think it's been done, so I did some research and couldn't find anything. And I did some more research and found out there's some true stories of like Postmates or DoorDash drivers getting like lured into people's basements and stuff. Like it's actually happening. So I was like, that's inspiring. But so I just wanted to make a very like slice of life in the night of, or one night in the life of this person, and their customer is a serial killer who kills his drivers. And I thought it'd be equally funny and scary and have that kind of slashery vibe that my favorite horror movies do.
Well, it's interesting because we went to the premiere at Screamfest, which was really awesome to see it on the big screen.
Yeah,
and,
it was awesome.
And kind of like Freaky, there is these two genres of comedy and horror, and it really starts off as like a comedy for the first 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, my composer, I guess I didn't tell him it was a horror, which I thought I did. But when I sent him the stuff, he was watching it. to get a vibe for the movie. And he said, I didn't know it was a horror. Like, I thought it was a comedy until it really caught me off guard when it started getting scary. And I was like, well, that's cool. Because I thought he knew. But I'm like, okay, cool. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted it to feel like exciting and upbeat and bright colors and stuff, and then once we get to the house it gets more slashery.
And it is this cool thing where it's like up here and it just keeps going, you know, and just like you know. And
like as soon as he opens the door,
it's
like
that switch is flipped.
Game over.
But it was really cool to number one that you did it, number one did it successfully enough to get it into this really prestigious film festival. Can you talk more about like how you got it made? Like what was the process of?
So I think I started writing it and it was like, or I had the idea, I want to say it was spring of, or maybe like March of 2022. And so I wrote it in like a few days, gave it to some friends I trusted, got some feedback, made some revisions, and then decided I wanted to shoot it in the summer, which we shot in June, which is like the summer solstice, so the nights are small and our night shoots. So that was a challenge. We couldn't start till like after 9 p.m. and the sun rises at like 5, so it limited our time. But you live and you learn. But I just got feedback and I shared the script with people I trusted and eventually settled on it. And then I toyed with the idea of casting somebody else in it, and then certain people recommended that I just play it. I'm an actor too. It'd be great to have that footage of myself, and fun to be in a slasher. So I'm like, sure, I'll act in it too. And I knew it'd be a lot because it was my first time directing as well. So I wrote it and would be directing myself and acting as the lead role, and I produced the project as well.
Spike.
Yeah, but it was so much fun, and I learned a lot. And I'm so excited to take what I learned from this to the next one, because I mean,
that's huge.
There's so many technical things that you just have no idea. Everybody tells you it's going to be hard, and then you do it and it's like, oh like it's really hard. Post-production's a nightmare, but I was so happy to finally get to a place where I was happy with it. And then the first festival was Horror Origins in Tucson, Arizona, and after seeing it in the theater there and getting good feedback from people, it was just this moment. It was the first time I watched it and didn't feel like I needed to change anything, because even then I was like, maybe I'll still need to tweak some things. But I was like, it's where it's gonna be, and I'm happy with it. And it's cool to go back and read the script and then watch it and ask yourself that question, like, did you make what you set out to make? And the answer is yes for me, and that's all I need.
That's
and
amazing.
Like whatever people think of it, they think of it, but I made what I wanted to make, and that's a really cool thing to be able to say.
Wow,
that's really cool.
So did you just? I mean, I remember you told me I think you saved a lot of money, and you you spent so much.
I did. Yeah, I worked. I worked quite a bit, and I was saving up a bit, and so I was like, okay, I could fund this myself. It'll be tight, but I can do it. So I did, and
that's amazing.
It feels really good. I don't think I could do that again to the extent I did, but it was super cool, and it's cool to feel like it paid off. I think for like the past year and a half there was that's something I was. So I mean, I did spend a lot of money on this, so there was that like if I end up not wanting to finish this, which I.
I guess it's gonna work out.
So I'm happy that it did work out, and
that's amazing.
It's getting good feedback thus far. So
that's so great.
Yeah,
and it's still on the festival circuit.
We have another festival this weekend, Horror House in Santa Clarita, and then there's one in Kentucky in November, and then I'm waiting on some other notification dates. So I'm hoping to push it through as long as it will go. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
Well, and if horror or comedy has such a big audience, it could just go even further, because I feel like it doesn't have to be around Halloween. Like horror is very much like a cyclical, it just keeps going. You know, and so like you could watch it in January, you could watch it over summer, like it doesn't really matter. People are still gonna show up and watch it and like partake in it.
Totally.
So it's really awesome. And for your first one, that's incredible.
I'm super proud of it, and I'm thankful to everyone who helped me with it, and it's been such a fun journey, and I'm very happy with it. And that's it's a cool thing to have under my belt, and while I'm moving on to the next one. And I do think at some point, I think there could be a feature length version at some point. I think I definitely have ideas on ways to flesh it out into a feature, and that would be fun to explore at some point too.
Well, it's a really cool premise, like, and that's the thing that visceral get people's
it's
attention,
a good hook.
you need that hook. Yeah.
It's so cool, and we've all been there. Where like you've seen this amazing movie, and there's something about you being the one to tell your friend to go watch it. It's like you had a hand in it somehow, even though you so didn't. But it's like
this is my movie.
Go see the movie I'm recommending. And
exactly.
So when you can make a movie that people are excited to tell their friends about, that's everything.
Well, I must say, we've been telling our friends about Dead Dash. So.
Prophecy fulfilled. Dad did it.
It's so good.
Dude, we just got to send it to Jason Blum and then get you ready for the next one. Just give you $6 million and boom. Yeah.
Hey, Christopher Landon.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason Blum.
Check him out.
Do we have a script for you?
All right, well, as we're wrapping up, we're really excited to see it. We'll let everybody know once it comes out, and hopefully we can see what else you do next and coming up. But during a Halloween season, besides from Freaky, for beginning horror people like us, what would be your top 3? I don't know if that's too hard. Maybe top couple that you would suggest.
Okay, I would say the first Scream.
Mm-hmm.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, the first one, and Jeepers Creepers.
Okay.
Those 3. Those are my 3. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. I haven't seen any of those.
I've seen Jeepers Creepers.
I've seen Scream in pieces, but not all the way through.
Right.
And definitely only in the daytime. So maybe it'd be very interesting. But thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for
having me.
Talking about all this stuff. I'm really excited to see what you do next.
Thank you.
Yes,
hopefully be part of it in some way. And thanks for watching Brave Productions, our first episode.
Yay!
Go watch Freaky. Tell us what you think about it. And go watch Scream, Jeepers Creepers, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And if you like it, maybe watch I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. That's the second one, right? You got to work on those names.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.